Jerry Quarry was probably the most popular heavyweight in history to never win a world title.
Jerry Quarry, one of the most charismatic heavyweights in boxing history. It's a shame he's not in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. You see a lot of the names, and they never created the buzz that Jerry Quarry did.
He had knocked out 5 opponents in a row in 1965 in the National Golden Gloves tournament in Kansas City.
If he was fighting now, he'd be probably one of the most popular fighters in the world.
Irish Jerry Quarry, the green trunks and everything else, and the shamrock. And I became a fan of Jerry Quarry. How could you not?
He was handsome, he was articulate, he was so popular in like California early in his career. He was a guest star on TV shows like Adam 12 and I Dream of Jeannie.
Quarry was in there, and the smallest of them all. He was the smallest of all of them.
Quarry could do it all in the ring. He could box, he could punch, he could brawl. He had tremendous heart, he had a great left hook. Turns pro with this tremendous fanfare, and it's not long after he cracks the top 10 ratings. In 1967, he fights to a draw with Floyd Patterson. Then later that year, he avenges the draw with a decision win against Patterson in the WBA Heavyweight Tournament.
The WBA Heavyweight Elimination Tournament when Muhammad Ali got stripped of the title, and that turned out to be his best chance of ever becoming heavyweight champion. Winning his first 2 fights, the first one in the tournament, the rematch with Patterson, then the big upset at that, Spencer, who was thought of as the best heavyweight in the world by a lot of people after Spencer beat Terrell in the tournament. Then he fights Jimmy Ellis in the finals, and we didn't know he had a bad back. He had to have surgery on it after, went through with the fight, lost the majority, 15-round decision. Quarry himself admits he lost the fight, saying if I was given the decision, I wouldn't have accepted it. Of course he would have accepted it. And then he fights Smokin' Joe Frazier, June 23rd, 1969, Madison Square Garden. What a first round.
A left landed against Joe's head. Joe came in with a right uppercut. Quarry is landing off it. Frazier keeps his gloves low and is an open target for punches to the head. Quarry is landing frequently. Frazier just got in a quick left and a right. But watch Quarry with those quick hands. A right and a left.
People talk about the Hagler-Hearns first round, and arguably that was the greatest first round in boxing history. But watch Smokin' Joe and Quarry go at it tooth and nail, and it was round of the year, and Quarry won that round.
Not retreating. Quarry carrying the fight to Frazier, who is unrelentingly aggressive himself and usually swarms all over the opponent. A lot of punches thrown in this first round. A good left by Frazier and a good counter punch right by Quarry.
In maybe the 2 best rounds of heavyweight history, if you watch especially the first round and the second round of that fight at Madison Square Garden, Jerry Quarry faces Joe Frazier, the heavyweight champ of the world. And those 2 rounds were kind of like Hagler-Hearns. You don't believe me? Watch YouTube. You'll see what I mean.
The only thing that I know about Jerry Quarry is that he had a lot of ability, but he was like on another wavelength. But he was a beautiful guy, man.
You know, beats Mac Foster, demolishes Ernie Shavers. Like, that was unthinkable. Demolishes Ernie Shavers, demolishes Ron Lyle. But, you know, when he got in there with Ali and he got in there with Joe Frazier, you know, it was a little bit of the deeper end of the pool.
Jerry Quarry was a great heavyweight. He never got maybe the respect he deserved. And anybody can knock out Ernie Shavers in 1 round, Mac Foster in 1 round. Gave a great fight with Joe Frazier, got stopped on cuts with Ali, but he beat a lot of good fighters. You know, and I was almost fortunate to fight his brother, Mike Quarry. We were supposed to fight in Vegas. The fight didn't come off.
Jerry told me he had this dream. He believed he was going to be heavyweight champion of the world.
The biggest drawback for Quarry was his size. He was basically around 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, 195 pounds.
Quarry's crime was he couldn't get over the top basically against Frazier and Muhammad Ali. they were standing in his way, two all-time great heavyweights.
Quarry fought in what many consider the golden age of heavyweight boxing. The top 10 ran 20 deep. That's how good the heavyweights were in the 60s and 70s.
The second pro show I ever went to, December 12, 1969, Quarry and George Chuvalo at Madison Square Garden. And talk about a bizarre finish.
And he lost fights that he should have won, like against George Chuvalo.
Quarry busted Chuvalo up bad. Chuvalo's eye is closed. He's not going to make it the full 10 rounds.
Chuvalo tags him with a left hook. Jerry goes down, jumps up, and then goes right back to one knee. And he's almost like pontificating on one knee. Oh, man, I can't believe I got hit with that sucker shot. I'm going to get up. I'm going to finish him off. Meanwhile, the count is 8, 9. He jumps up. And if you watch it on video, I still think he beats the count.
Keep this in mind. He got up and then decided, I got up too quick. I'm going to take a knee and get up at 9. He's on a knee. Referee Zach Clayton's counting 9, 10. And the moment he waved his hands, Quarry said, what are you doing? Like he snapped too. And it's always a mystery what happened.
And Jerry had an argument in the ring. And it was sad because he went down, he got up, he went down again. And then it became the referee's call whether he beat the count or not.
But one thing about Quarry, he always seemed to come back. He would always persevere.
And then he later became a announcer, TV announcer. He was fantastic as a TV announcer. Witty, quick, articulate, knowledgeable.
He tried to come back in the 80s too. I think he could have been an Alphabet Gang champion, no question about it, especially some of those guys that were champions then. I absolutely think he could do that. The early guys of the 30s, prior to the Joe Louis era, when they were kind of all just changing the belt back and forth, I could see him walking into one of those titles. You know, absolutely. I could see him getting a title around those eras.
One of the few heavyweights from his era that he never fought was George Foreman. Foreman told me that Quarry was the most talented heavyweight in history to have never won the title.
Had he been around, let's say, instead of Ingemar Johansson to fight Patterson, 50-50 chance.
In late 1991, I interviewed Jerry Quarry for Ring Magazine. It was the last time he was interviewed in Ring Magazine. He told me he'd beat Rocky Marciano, no problem. He was convinced he would have beaten Marciano.
Jerry Quarry, Rocky Marciano. Those two guys fought. I'd go with Marciano. Marciano showed what he's got when he beat Walcott and he beat Charles. People say they were a little older, but they had great skills. Walcott was awesome. Yeah, I thought Jerry Quarry was super tough. He came forward. He went toe-to-toe with Frasier. Marciano's condition, I think, was much better than Jerry Quarry's.
Would Quarry have beaten Marciano? I mean, a decent chance he would have, but in all fairness to Marciano, if he didn't knock Rocky out and the fight started at the end of the 8th, 9th, 10th round, it really would have started favoring Marciano at that point.
I saw Jerry Quarry fight in 1992. He was trying to make a comeback, and he didn't do particularly well.
But after his career really ended, he continued on. Very sadly, he continued on into the 90s. And you could hear it in his speech that he was not right. He was broke. He was down and out. I was commissioner when he called me in around 1990. And he asked me, can you get me a job with the New York State Athletic Commission? But he called me from his home in California. And I said, I can, Jerry, but you'll have to move to New York. He said, well, there's nothing I can do from here. I said, Jerry, how can you do the job as maybe an inspector for me or whatever, or even as my right-hand man in California? You got to move to New York. Do you know anybody that might be able to let you live in their home? And I said, I'll tell you what, I could set up my basement. You could live rent-free in my basement.
The interview took place in late 1991, and he was convinced he was never going to fight again. He told me during the course of the interview there were no more comebacks. Yet, later in 1992, he did fight one more time and lost a 6-round decision. And don't forget, he's 44 years old at this point. Remember, Foreman turned the whole world upside down when he made his comeback in his early 40s, and he ended up winning the heavyweight title. When I spoke to him, he was very charismatic, very funny. Was he slipping a little bit? I would say yes, but he was clearly not as bad as what was to come.
Probably one of the most powerful moments of my writing career, but for all the wrong reasons. I drove out to his house in Hemet, California, which is out in the desert. This was when Jerry was like in the beginning of Dementia. That Los Angeles Times story came out that said that he was not doing well. And I felt like I was sitting next to a vegetable. You know, he was able to talk, but, you know, he really wasn't able to articulate much. There was talk of there being some other problems with alcohol and drugs, and he just wound up becoming like the poster boy for pugilistic dementia.
His history, the family's history of fighting, was predominantly pushed upon them by the father, where they would scatter the furniture out of the living room and make the two brothers fight each other, and slug it out like with the kids. So when you do that, then you go into the amateurs, then you go into pros. I mean, that's gonna hurt you. So dementia was not that far away, or not inconceivable of happening. For if you look back at the steps that this guy's life took.
The thing that I was left with after speaking to him, it wasn't necessarily regret, but he missed the spotlight. He felt like his time had gone and he had been forgotten, and he didn't want to be forgotten, and he didn't deserve to be forgotten. He recited this poem to me, and it was amazing. To this day, I wish I had the audio recording. Unfortunately, I don't. But I'll read you what Jerry Quarry said to me in that last interview in Ring Magazine. I've been in the ring with the best of all men. Some say the best of all time. In boxing, you are only as good as your last fight, so you are only as good as your last time. In the ring with Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali is a memory I looked on with pride. I fought with my heart, but needed much more. A bridesmaid, but never the bride. I look at my past, great memories abound, for I fought, I bled, and I cried. I gave it my all, round after round, and the world knows that I tried. Jerry Quarry died in 1999.